Welcome everyone. We are here right now in Portugal, Algesur, I think it's pronounced, with the lovely Petra Brzovic. And we have been in a retreat for 5 days now, right? Okay. For those of you who don't know Petra, she is an intuitive healer and she has a lot of experience, in different healing practices. Today, we are here with her because she will be speaking a little bit of trauma and healing trauma. We have been talking about the topic for a few days now, and I have been really, really interested in it. And that's why I invited Petra to talk about the topic for the Unity community. So Petra, one thing I would like to start with, I was listening to you the other day and you mentioned something that really, really hit me. You explained the difference between a traumatic event and a real trauma. Mm-hmm. Can you let us know, please, what that difference is?
Of course. So traumatic event is something that happens to us, which doesn't necessarily lead to trauma. Trauma is a consequence of the traumatic event. So if something happens to us, some kind of traumatic event, and it happens to all of us, if we have the capacity to handle that situation, or we have the support from loved ones or from professionals, then we can process the traumatic event and move through it and just continue living with our lives empowered by that experience. In case something happens to us and we don't get the support and we just stay stuck in that moment, feeling hopeless, lost, broken in any way, and we don't heal it, then it stays as a condensed energy, as a memory on all levels of us, and we continue living our life with the trauma in us. And eventually it starts reflecting on all areas of our lives.
Thank you. You mentioned, if I'm recalling properly, that trauma is something that could have happened somehow too fast, mm-hmm. for too long.
Or too soon.
Or too soon.
Exactly. So if we are very young, if something happens to us when we are children, of course, we don't have the capacity to handle some situations, especially if something happens and we don't have the support of our parents and other loved ones. But traumatic event can happen later in life as well. We might be exposed to some catastrophic event. We might be involved in natural catastrophe or a war or a car accident, or we suddenly lose a loved one. That's a traumatic event as well. So it can happen later in life. But it also could be like a series of traumatic events that we go through our life that continuously repeat, and they just build up and it becomes too much. For example, living in an abusive relationship for a long time, or living in an unhealthy family environment for a long time, it just gradually depletes our energy, and we just are so stretched through a long period of time that it stays in us as a trauma. And then we perceive all other relationships through those lenses. Our bodies start to get ill. It just reflects on all areas of our lives.
Thank you. You mentioned a few minutes ago that we all go through traumatic events. And you just mentioned that the body could reflect the trauma. So how could we tell, or how could we know when we have some trauma stuck in our bodies?
So, our bodies are constantly communicating and trying to bring our attention inward. So we might feel, that we might be having some pressure in the chest or pain in our back, or there is some disbalance. And very often, especially today, living in this hyper busy life, we tend to try to ignore bodily messages, and we try to just go through one more day and just do this, and then we'll later deal with what's going on. And then we start taking painkillers, or we start using some things that numb the pain, whether it's alcohol or overeating, or trying to escape by scrolling on social media for hours, or playing video games for hours, shopping. I don't know, many people find many different ways how to distract themselves from being in contact with what their body is trying to tell them. One thing is that we are unconscious and we just get pulled into everything that is around us and just grabbing our attention. And the other thing is that we fear to go inwards because we do know that we are carrying pain and we are afraid that we'll have to go through that pain again. So we are trying to ignore it, hoping that it will go away, but it won't. It just won't. What will happen is that our bodies will have to start being louder and louder. And then that small illness, a small disbalance will have to become a larger problem until we hear our bodies, until we really become stopped by the body, by the illness. And then we'll have no other choice than to stop. Or something in our life will happen. We will lose a job. We'll have a really challenging situation repeating in the relationship until one day we realize we cannot take it anymore. So something will need to happen to finally bring us back to ourselves. So every illness, every heartbreak, anything that happens in our lives that we might perceive as extremely painful is actually here to bring us closer to ourselves. And there's always a blessing in everything. There's always a silver lining, and it's up to us to choose the way how we will look at certain situation. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's the only way we can actually move through it, because the only way through it is, out of it is through ourselves, not escaping it, not acting like it didn't happen.
So you mentioned the body, you mentioned relationships, and you mentioned situations. So you are an expert, I like to call you expert, hypnotherapist. We have worked together with my subconscious mind. So from your expertise, what would you recommend people to embrace first? Because we know there are many people who are going through illnesses, but also there are a lot of people like in bad relationships or repeating the same patterns again and again, like issues with the boss or issues with anyone. So what would you recommend them to focus on first? What do you recommend them to work or to look at first?
Okay. So I would say that everything always starts from us. So whatever is happening inside us or in our relationships and situations is just bringing us to look inward. And the number one key to start healing our journey is looking for ways how to love ourselves more. So love definitely heals, and self-love is what will help us transition any situation with grace. I'm not saying that grace won't look messy on the outside and won't feel messy at some points, but love is the key to heal ourselves, our relationships, and mostly and mainly I'm speaking about love towards ourselves here. Any disbalance in our lives, whether it's on physical level or energetically looking at our situations in our life, is reflecting our inner world. And any disbalance that is out of alignment with love will cause that disbalance in our body or in our lives. So moving back to love, returning back to love, looking for ways how we can treat ourselves better, observing our thoughts, observing the way we speak to ourselves internally in our head, how we are taking care of ourselves, food, sleep, care about physical body, how we nurture ourselves. Do we allow ourselves to have all the feelings that we feel? Very often people are super critical towards themselves and they feel really bad when they feel bad. And then it's just a cycle that is really painful to be in. We are all humans and it's normal that we have all feelings. And if we allow ourselves to feel sad at sometimes and to even feel angry or to even have those feelings of feeling ashamed and guilty, that's human, that's normal. And if we don't attach to that and if we don't punish ourselves because we are feeling in a certain way, then those feelings will just flow through us and very soon we'll be out of that. So practicing those ways of being loving towards ourselves, supporting towards ourselves is number one key. Always look for ways to treat yourself as you would treat your best friend, a little child, your loved one. What would you say to that person? That's how we have to approach ourselves. That's what we need to say to ourselves. And that's how the healing journey begins.
It's said regularly that we treat everyone better than we treat ourselves. And if I would ask you one recommendation for people to love themselves more, what would you say?
What do you mean? Like,
one recommendation, one action item they should do, like, I don't know, the way they talk to themselves, the way they take care of their bodies, the way they take care of like their nutrition. Where do you think they should be working on?
just for a start, observe your thoughts. Observe when you do something. It might be such a common thing, like, running into a table or running into the edge of your bed. What do you say to yourself in that moment? How do you react? Are you supportive with yourself, or are you angry at yourself and you say, oh, you're so stupid, you never do something right, you're a loser? So catch those thoughts and then look for loving thoughts. What would you say to a small child? Because that small child lives in you. And that small child is listening to you all the time. So choose loving words. That's how we heal the inner child. That's how we heal the adult self. So I would say that just observing that mental chatter and the way we speak to ourselves is extremely important. And I'm not saying it is easy, but as long as we don't start paying attention to that, we are not aware of that, and we don't know where to start. So listening to the way we talk to ourselves will very soon tell us, do we love ourselves enough, or is there more? And there's always more. There's always space to love ourselves more.
Okay. And once we start loving ourselves, there's something that you mentioned earlier today that really hit me, that everything that happens and everyone triggering us is because they have a lesson for us. So now I am aware of my thoughts, I am aware of my feelings, but I'm still noticing and experiencing those lessons coming at me. So I guess at that point, even if I already started to heal somehow or to release a trauma, I have a lot of things to work on still. So how could we approach those different challenges? Because, especially for me, those triggers are the most challenging part. I am very aware of my thoughts, of my feelings, but still, like, I find a lot of challenges out there. So
perfect.
what would you recommend to do in those cases?
Just ask yourself, when something triggers you, when someone triggers you, drives you crazy, or makes you feel not good and unworthy, or just, uncomfortable in any way, then stop, pause, take a breath, and know that it's never about them. They are here because energetically you need them. They're bringing you something to show you what is inside you ready to be healed. So that unhealed part of you energetically brought them in your life. And they're actually your gift. They are teaching you to speak up for yourself. They are teaching you to say no when you feel like no, to live your purpose, to love yourself more, to be more kind towards yourself, to maybe be more kind to other people. It could be so many lessons. Maybe compassion. It could be anything, but it's always within. So when somebody triggers us from outside, it's a great reminder to turn inward and ask ourselves, okay, what do I need? Maybe it can be so simple, like I need to sleep now, or I'm hungry and I need to eat, which means I forgot to take care of myself. And that person is right here to remind me that I need a break. It can be that simple. Maybe I pushed myself too hard today and I didn't take care of myself. So he or she came into my life to remind me, okay, I need a break. I need to lay down or eat something. But it can also be, I really need to speak up for myself. I need to be more loving towards myself, or anything else.
Thank you very much. And just because we need to go back to the retreat right now, I guess it's time for us to wrap it up. Anything else you would like to share with the community?
There's so much I could share.
But we don't have time,
No, we don't have time. Yeah, so, yeah. Just keep on showing up for yourself and just be the best version you can for yourself and then for the whole world around you. And that's how your world will change, and that's how the whole world will change. So always look for love and try to find ways how to act from your heart. I'm not saying it's easy, but it gets easier with time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And for those of you who are watching this, we are preparing a masterclass with Petra, and we'll be talking about trauma, how healing trauma, and we're also preparing an online course with her. So we for sure will send you more details about that, and you will find it down there in the description. So thank you all for being here.
And see you soon.
And see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.